Recording. Wonderful. So, good afternoon, everyone. If I'm not my usual sprightly self, it's because I have a cold. So, there you have it. Unfortunately, viruses do still exist. We didn't manage to completely wipe them all out during the pandemic, unfortunately. So, there you have it. So, we're going to start off with, we're going to do the week 2 material now. Canvas, there we go. I have to say, though, it does feel bacterial, not viral. Before we get there, though, let me just, this was bounced off of my email, so I thought I'd bounce this on to you. There's a job fair that's coming up on the 24th from 4 to 6. Inside McCase's Learning Link near Scotiabank Cafe. That's the little wing of things that's down on the way to the library, I think. Or, no, that's actually, it's by the big staircase. I think it's by the big staircase. Anyway, it's a job fair, so if you'd like a job, go talk to some employers. Yeah. So, in addition, I had not actually posted the links to the videos I've been uploading, so here's a link to the YouTube channel. If I'm not going to post a link for every video, so if you want updates, subscribe to the channel, please. Not that I'm trying to. I don't care about subs because I've already got enough. So, subscribe or don't, but that's where the videos are. It's for your convenience that I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. So yeah, that's it. Am I forgetting anything? I don't think I'm forgetting anything. It's nice and quiet in this room today. I hope that lasts. Last time, it came through so bad on the video. It was incredible. So anyway, let us consider our lecture material for this week. So, last week we were concerned primarily with how variables work, how do I acquire user input, how do I print things to the console, how do I draw things with JavaFX. This week we reintroduce all of your control flow concepts, which you should already have a decent handle on from Python. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. There will be a few different varieties of loops particularly that you won't have seen before. Fortunately, if you understand how the good old basic while loop works, you understand how pretty much every other loop works too. But we shall review all in detail in sequence. So, let us first turn our attention to our good old friend and constant companion, the if statement. Syntactic differences between Java and Python. You will notice, once again, Java is using curly braces to denote code blocks. Once again, indentation does not matter so much in Java, although it is still Technically speaking, part of the documentation marks for your assignments are also, have you indented correctly? Right? Is your code messy looking? I'll take marks off for that. Second point of syntactic difference. You will notice in Python, round braces around the Boolean expression are not required, but in Java, round braces around the Boolean expression are, in fact, required. Aside from that, the only real difference is that the term elif is replaced with else if, two separate words with a space in between. So far as it goes, those are the only differences between if statements in Python and in Java. In terms of the way that they operate, it is precisely and exactly the same as in Python. In fact, if statements are one of those types of constructs. No matter where you find them, in whatever language you may be interested in, they will always behave more or less the same. The syntax may vary, but the function is the same. Does that make sense? I assume they drilled you pretty hard on if statements in fundamentals, hopefully. It's kind of impossible to program without them. So, let us now consider Boolean expressions. So, Boolean operators are split into a few different categories, right? You have comparators and logical operators, right? The comparators are those operations which compare different values. Greater than, less than, greater than equals, less than equals, equality comparison, inequality comparison. Right? So far so good? Our logical operators look a bit different in Python as opposed to Java. In Python, you use English words, mostly conjunctions, and, or, and not. In Java, as with most programming languages, and is a double ampersand, or is double pipe or vertical bar character. It's located above the return key. And not is a prefix exclamation point. Depending on what language you're in, this is sometimes a tilde, but most of the time it's an exclamation point. So, aside from that, Boolean expressions operate precisely the same way in Python as they do in Java. Does this make sense so far? So far, so good? Good. So, one point to mention before we move along. Consider this if statement here. If you'll see at the top of this Java code, x has been declared with what type? Integer. Here, what are we comparing it to?
String.
This results in a syntax error in Java. It will not simply return false, it will return a type incompatibility error. the equality comparison expects two operands of the same type. If it doesn't receive that, it complains at you. Does that make sense? So you just have to be a bit more careful about what it is that you're testing. You should be especially careful of this when you're working in JavaScript. I know I'm not teaching you JavaScript, but JavaScript is like so bad and so awful that it's kind of fun to point out how bad it is sometimes, so I'm going to do that quickly.
Triple equals is awesome.
Oh, yeah, the fact that it's necessary isn't so awesome.
Especially since double equals works most of the time when you really want triple equals.
Yeah. So just a quick brief note from the world of JavaScript. Let me blow that up for you a little bit. So in JavaScript, you can compare integers with strings, and it'll try to guess whether it's the same thing or not. You can use a different operator, which is a triple equals operator, which tests both type and value. I must stress, triple equals does not exist in Java. It doesn't need to. Everything is automatically being evaluated on the basis of type prior to anything being executed. That's what it means to have a type system. JavaScript barely has a type system. Yes, there are various fun things you can do in Java, or in JavaScript. Let me see if I remember how you do it. So 0 is equal to 0, right? You know what? Never mind. Look it up. There's a fun thing you can do where it's like the equality, like there are certain important mathematical properties that equality is supposed to have. Like if A equals B and B equals C, it should therefore be concluded that A is equal to C, right? This is known as the transitive property. For certain operations, this does not hold in JavaScript, which is hilarious. For a person who knows logic, that's hilarious. JavaScript is such a bad language, it's even worse than Python. So, anyway, but enough about me complaining about JavaScript. We've already talked about this, but it's worth going over yet again. Equality comparison for strings in Java requires that you use the dot equals method. If you use direct equality comparison on strings, what are we comparing?
The memory address.
The memory address, yes. This compares memory addresses of the two inputs if it's an object. It's actually not just strings. That's the default behavior for equality comparison on objects in general. So really, this should only be used for primitives. What are our primitive types again?
Char, int, double.
Yep, char, int, double, boolean, float.
Long.
Yep, long and short. Yes. Good. So, this does work in Python and in JavaScript, but in Java, you'll need to use the equals method. See, one of the things that makes Java a nice language to work with, and the type of language that you want to build something large with, is that it is consistent about its own rules. Languages like JavaScript and Python, the reason people like me get annoyed by them is they're not consistent with their own rules, right? They bake in all kinds of special exceptions to try to make things easier for people who don't know how to program. And Java does not cater to the casual player, shall we say, you know? Python is programming, the programming equivalent of Flappy Bird, right? Java is the programming equivalent of, I don't know, whatever video game you like. I like Factorio. It's the video game equivalent, or Java is the video game equivalent of Factorio. Chess, sure, chess. It's like chess versus checkers, you know? Anyway, so let us now discuss our good old friend, the while loop. You will notice the differences here between Python and Java are essentially the same differences as we had between if statements. We need some round braces around the Boolean condition. We need to use curly braces. We need to use semicolons. Aside from that, while loops haven't changed, which is good because we already know how to use while loops. Did they teach you about break statements?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, okay. Well, we will review what a break does. So, there are 3 special lines of code which have the effect of moving where the program pointer is. So, when your computer is executing this piece of code, the way that it keeps track of where it is in the program, it keeps a special value called the program pointer, right? So it might be saying, okay, I'm currently on line 17, line 17 executes, I'm now on line 18 executes, I'm now on line 19, right? Under normal conditions, it automatically flows from one statement to the next as you would expect. There are 3 statements which are actually basically renamed goto statements, which allow us to change where the program pointer is. One is break. Anybody want to guess what the other 2 are?
I know continues one.
Continue, and 1/3 one? Applies at the function level. Return, yes. So, we have break, continue, and return. Return optionally is provided some value, which is the return value of the function. We haven't talked about, methods and functions are the same thing. We haven't talked about methods yet, but we're going to get there. So, the break statement terminates a loop. When a break statement occurs, when you execute break inside the loop, you break yourself out of the loop. Another way to put that, it changes the program pointer so that it now points to the first statement after the loop. Make sense? It's actually possible to write things like that would ordinarily be infinite loops. So long as they're broken properly, it's not a problem, right? You could say, while true, if x is less than 10, break, x plus plus, int x is equal to 1, or that would be a minus actually, and make this like 100. Yeah, that'll do. So, if all you were looking at was the condition for the loop, you might say, oh, this is obviously an infinite loop that will run forever. A loop will return back to the top once it's finished an iteration, so long as the loop condition is true. Can the truth literal ever not be true?
No.
Absolutely not. Wouldn't make sense. If true were suddenly able to become false, then,
JavaScript
Yeah, or worse, like something's wrong with the universe and it's about to be the Armageddon or something, I don't know. So this in theory is an infinite loop, but because inside of the loop we have a break statement that will eventually actually be executed, this is not an infinite loop. It will not run forever. It will eventually hit this break statement, break out of the loop, and everything will be fine. Does that make sense? I assume they went over infinite loops with you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So, yeah, there's really not much to say about infinite loops. They're loops that run infinitely. It's an error, and a common category of error. So, continue is a bit different. The break statement exits the loop. It returns you to the, it moves you to the end of the loop after the loop is finished. Continue moves you back to the beginning of the loop. That is to say, continue really means start next iteration. That's what continue actually means, right? Don't finish this execution, jump to the next one. That's what continue means. Does that make sense? Good. And return, of course, means something similar to break, except it applies at the method or function level rather than at the loop level. Does that make sense? So, a thing that often catches beginning programmers, they don't understand that the return statement actually finishes execution. Nothing executes after a return statement has been executed. That function is done. It does not execute anything anymore. It is finito. Make sense? Good.
And does the return statement only works in the function or method?
Yes, the return statement is targeted at the function level, function or methods. Both of these are applicable only to loops. So if you break, well, we're going to see that break is also used in switch cases. But, that's something we're going to be looking at a little later on. It has the same basic function, it's just applied to a different control structure. But yeah, so these guys apply in loops, this one applies in the method. Even if you are inside of a loop, return will always break you out of the method itself, ending any loops that may occur. Does that make sense? Good. Incidentally, one of the most common forms of the goto statement, which does actually still exist in Java, you can use gotos, but they are considered forbidden magic. Gotos are extremely bad practice. I just want to highlight that 1,000 million times. Do not ever use gotos. But if you were going to use gotos, basically the only reason people use them anymore is it allows you to have a multi-loop break statement. This type of functionality can be achieved otherwise, but the one thing about a break, if you have nested loops, break only breaks you out of one of them, right? So, for example, if I had, loop, pseudocode, loop, and then a break, this break statement only applies to loop C. You will still be trapped inside loop B. Right? Does that make sense? So if you wanted to break all of those loops all at once, you would require some additional logic, probably declaring a few flags to, judge what the termination behavior was of that inner loop, and then branch accordingly using if statements. All of this sort of thing, very, very possible, a little bit of extra work. Go-tos simplify it, but they are not worth opening the hell portal and letting all of the demons out. So please, please, please do not use go-tos. Yes?
Just out of curiosity, just so I have a better understanding of the go-to,
Mm-hmm.
does it just skip over a part of the loop? Is that the point of it?
So it can skip over any amount of anything.
Oh, okay.
So again, this is forbidden magic, so please never use it. But this is essentially how a go-to works. You pick some point in your code, and you apply a label, right? You say label A, right? You can have other points in your code with different labels, and then go to label A, literally just picks up your program pointer and drops it at the appropriate label. That's what a go-to does. You can branch conditionally using certain more advanced constructs, but that is what a go-to is. Basically, the reason that we don't use them is it creates a condition known as spaghetti code, right? So if you imagine, this is your program, right? And you have a go-to here, go-to jumping there, a jump down here, jump conditionally here or back up here, down there, right there. You get my point? It's possible to write a program using go-tos that's completely impossible for anybody else on the planet to read. There are a couple of notable examples of this back in the 70s, actually. In the 70s, occasionally, code had to be thrown completely out, the whole code base for a project, because one person left, because they wrote the code like that, right? And while you may think that that sounds like job security, you often leave, you can want to leave a job without being fired, So, basically, way back, there was only assembly language, right? Way, way, way back, that assembly language was programmed on punch cards, right? So C and onwards is, I believe, known as 4th generation compilers. I think we're still in 4th generation compilers. Prior to that, you compiled assembly code, and assembly code only had go-tos. It had only go-tos and very simple CPU operations. And pretty much every line in an assembly language corresponds to an actual CPU operation, right? What an if statement actually is it's a fixed collection of go-tos, right? If you take the program apart, peel it back, and look under the hood, it's all go-tos, because go-to is one of the CPU's operations. Like, the CPU doesn't know what an if statement is. All it knows is how to change the program pointer inside of a program, right? So, if statements really are just a collection of go-to statements, a specific, rigidly defined collection of go-to statements. Same thing with loops. Loops, once they've been compiled, are just go-tos, right? And you can, like with a loop, you can even see it pretty clearly, right? You've got a condition here, right? if that condition is false, go to here. Otherwise, go to here, and this means go back to top, right? Everything is in go-tos at a fundamental level. But if statements and while loops are far more interpretable, right? They create a nested hierarchy of language constructs. Go-tos do not create a nested, any kind of nested hierarchy. It's not easy to determine what a code block is if all you have is go-tos, right? So that is sufficiently useful that nobody has really seriously used go-tos except in some very special cases. Yeah, like every once in a while there's a specific thing you do with them, right? But overall, you never touch them, right? This has been the state of programming for at least 50 years, right? That being said, if you're having difficulty understanding these language constructs, you can break them down into something simpler, and that is a go-to. And to understand these correctly is to understand them in terms of go-tos, right? It's like if you understand like molecules in chemistry, you understand molecules in terms of atoms, right? Same thing going on here. But again, the actual use of raw go-tos is strongly discouraged. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Follow-up question?
Yeah, just to clarify, basically, like an if statement, for example, like if this condition is true, go here, else this condition, or else the condition is not true, then go here.
Yeah, basically, the if, like an if-else block, right? If C, else, label A, label B, label C. Basically, this is if C, go to A, otherwise B, right? Else doesn't actually do anything, it's just a label, right? And then at the end here, it's go to C. This one's technically redundant, so it's like not C, go to B. So, because you get the next one automatically, right? So you actually don't even need the A label, but you do need a go to C here and a B, but you don't need a go to C here because that's the next statement. So that's if statements in terms of go-tos, right? And part of the reason that go-tos are or if statements are easier to understand than loops is that's actually a pretty simple structure of go-tos, right? But yeah, anyway, that's the forbidden magic. Please never use it.
Here's how it works.
Question?
In while loop, if we put else and in else I bring something and down there I put continue, so it means that if condition is false, it go to in else, and from continue it will start from while.
I'm pretty sure else cases on a while loop are a thing that only exists in Python.
Okay.
Most people laugh at Python because they allow you to put an else case on a while.
Yeah.
It's actually a ridiculous thing. Because, like, it's just, if the loop doesn't execute, you automatically get whatever's after it.
Yeah.
What the else, like, it's redundant. But yeah, let me just verify that because I will be surprised if Java has. Java while loop else is. Yeah, no. No. Python though. Yes. See, Python has while else, which, again, like, this is the reason everybody picks on Python. So, well, not everybody. I like to pick on Python, but that's because it does stupid things, like have else cases on whiles. No other language does that. Java is not an exception. So a loop is just a loop. You don't get an else case. If you want else, you go for an if statement.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. So apart from loop, like if we want if else, and in Python we have elif. So as per the C language, we can use else if.
Yes. So
More.
here, yep. Elif becomes else if.
Okay.
Otherwise, it works exactly the same way.
Okay.
Any? Yes. Question?
You written down here switch or case, so what exactly is that?
Oh, we're getting to it. We have a whole thing on switch cases later on. Yeah. Good.
Really slow because
So
there's code in Python.
let's talk about scope. Python, to my awareness, with the exception of the loop variables of for loops, uses function level scoping. That is to say, when we decide whether something is local or global, we are primarily examining functions. Java uses block level scoping. So, if you declare a variable inside of an if statement, it does not exist outside of that if statement. I think here, probably useful to have an example. There we go. Can you see that at the back? Is that good? Cool. So, int x equals 5. Print x, see what happens. We can all probably predict the results of this. We get 5. But what happens? Let's say if true, x equals 5. Int x is equal to 5. You can see, even before we hit the play button, we've already got a compiler error. But to view the full error, I'm going to hit play anyways. Java cannot find symbol x. And you may be saying to yourself, but Java, it's right there. How can you not see it? Block level scoping. The contents of the if statement are a code block. Things which are declared in a code block are only visible in that block and any sub-blocks, right? So, for example, if I had if true here, in this case, x exists, because this if statement is nested inside of the larger one, right? So, you can see going down the hierarchy, but you can't go the other way. So, at the level of main, the main method, x does not exist. Does this make sense? You guys did local versus global scoping, right? I'm getting some kind of like,
I don't know.
this was like, this was more of a, well, it actually doesn't even matter that much because you basically would have had to throw out everything you know about scoping to program in Java anyways, so. So in Python, right, you have local variables and you have global variables. A local variable only exists inside of the function it's declared in while that function is executing. Global variables exist for all functions at all times, so long as they've been instantiated, right? Global variables are generally a way of sharing information between functions, but they're not, it's also not good practice to use too many global variables. Global variables also have, basically if I look at somebody's code and I see that every variable is a global variable, I'm like, you don't want to use global variables for everything, even though they may be convenient.
You mean, if we put outside of the main block, or what does it do?
Yes, so in Java it's different, right? Java has this additional layer of object-oriented that helps constrain this. A global variable isn't really global in Java. It's a class variable. We call them instance variables. They're either static or they're instance variables, but they attach themselves to the class, not to the program. Like there's no concept of the program as a thing that things exist in other than classes. I may not be expressing that.
There's no
That's fine.
overarching global namespace.
Correct. There's no overarching global namespace. There is merely a collection of classes. You are executing the main method of one of them. Everything else, it's pulling everything else into it. This is in contrast to languages like Python and C, where you do have global variables. C++ also. Whenever I say something is true of C, it's always also true of C++, because every valid C program is also a valid C++ program. That's an actual true fact. Not all C++ programs are C programs, but all C programs are C++ programs. But anyway, so if you were just, absolutely dead set that this was the place where that should occur, can anybody propose an alteration to this code to make it work? Simple alteration.
Putting the declaration outside of the statement.
That's what you were going to say, right? Yeah. Yeah, all you do is you take the declaration and you pop it above the if statement. Notice I'm going to do the declaration and not the instantiation. Now, you're not permitted to redefine data types for things you've already defined them for, so we delete this guy as well. Now notice here that I've separated out the declaration from the instantiation, right? This is perfectly possible to do in Java. In fact, once we get to objects, you'll find it's quite useful to do this way a lot of the time. But yeah, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say about removing the if, but as it from my head, you said it, so I was like, oh.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions?
How do you send this to, if you had this in another class, how do you send it to the main with the return?
You have to instantiate an object of that class or access it through static members. But that's like object-oriented stuff that we're not there yet. But yeah, basically, classes are used to create objects. So main would need to either create an object of the class it wishes to use, then it has access to all of its stuff, or static members are referenced through the class name rather than a particular object. So you can access static members without having an object. You can access stuff that way as well, just through the class name, and you can do that. That's the closest we get to like true global variables. that make sense?
No, but we'll get it.
We'll get there. Did you have a question?
Yeah, is that a global, global variable?
What, X?
Yeah.
It is local to Maine. You'll find that I don't really use the term global variables in this class. I'm really, I will say it's local to this context, it's local to that context. We no longer think about scope as this binary in Java. We think about degree of locality, right? If I'm inside this if statement, and I have the variable declared inside it, it's more local than that one, right? But, we have plenty of time to iron out these details. Yes?
What would global be like local to then, if that makes sense?
What would global be local to?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, the highest level at which you can have a variable is a class. So, global in that sense is local to the class. But there's no layer of variables above classes that you can drop things into. So you can't have something that's global across all classes. Yes?
What happens if you put your int x above public static void main and put it part of the public class and just say that?
Excellent question. What happens if we do this?
I'll be together.
It becomes an instance variable of the class, but we're not there yet, but since you asked. This is the point at which you would probably want to declare it private or public. Right? And x cannot be referenced from a static context, so that this would have to be static as well. You don't have to worry about that until we get to dealing with actual... Sorry. That was probably a funny reaction. I'm sorry.
You will answer my call.
Shush. I'm teaching. Don't you know that inquiring minds want to know? So, we don't have to worry about the rules about static just yet, but because main is static, that makes anything it references directly must also be static. So we have to make the variable static as well. This is like our kludgy workaround solution until we understand properly what a static variable is, or a static method. But basically, yeah, so that thing is now shared among all methods in this class. And this is the highest level that we will put a variable at in this class, because that's the highest level in Java. Does that make sense?
So it's as global a variable as you can get.
That is as global as it gets, yes. So the problem that this seeks to solve, right? When you have a lot of global variables, there's a property that we like to have in programming languages where if you give the same input to something, you should receive the same output each time, right? If I give 5 in, I should get 10 out, and no matter how many times I put 5 in, or when, I should still get 10 out, right?
Should be predictable.
It should be predictable, exactly. Global variables, whenever used, cut against that principle, right? Suddenly, it doesn't just matter what the inputs to the function or the method were. It matters what order they were called in, what was called before them that might have affected that variable. It complexifies the nature of reasoning about functions. It makes it more complicated to reason about functions, right? In the absolute 100% ideal case, you think about functions purely input, this is the output. That's it, that's all, right? The more states that you have making your system complex, the more, it deviates from that. This is one of the reasons that like you get random errors in your operating system and you have no idea why. It's like originating in all of the state that the operating system holds, right? But anyway, so that's the reason. Any other questions? Okay. Good. So, I suppose we should do some exercises, eh? Try some of this. I think we've covered enough. These solutions that I forgot to hide are actually the solutions to the exercises, so, I suppose I should make the ones from last week visible. I'll do that now. So, let's see here. Ooh, okay, this is one, I like this one. All right. Write a program that allows the user to guess a 5-digit secret code. After each guess, tell them how many digits were correct, and then give them the sum of those digits. Let them keep guessing until they get the code right. This is like, it's a little bit like Wordle, actually, this problem. You guys know Wordle? Yeah? It's like, a lot of people know Wordle these days. So basically, this is how you want things to, this is how you want your interaction to look, right? Computer says, guess a number. User says 53412. Computer says you got 2 numbers right. The sum is 7. Guess a number. Nine, 3, 4, 9, 9. Correct. You win. Does this make sense? So you have to set up a scanner to take input from the user. They will enter sequences of 5 digits. They will be checked against a secret number, which the computer knows. For the basic implementation, just pick a number and hard code it. But if you would like to impress me, have it randomly generated, and also run an interaction with the user where they get to select how long the secret code is, so it's not capped at 5 numbers. Does this make sense? All right. Sorry?
Could you repeat again?
Sure. So, your program will have a secret number. The user is trying to guess your number. Whenever the user enters some value, it checks to see how many digits match. Then it returns also, in addition to how many numbers that the user got right, they also return what the sum of the correct digits is. When the user eventually gets it right completely, it's like, okay, you got it. That's the basic version. The advanced version is, the secret number is random. It's random each time. And the super impressive version, the user also gets to select how many numbers they're guessing at the beginning. Does that make sense? So if the user wanted, they could play a 7-digit game or a 9-digit game or a 1-digit game, whatever they wanted. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. Get to and have at it.
Did you watch video?
Yeah, that's, I actually start a little more description. So like that's just, right, that came up. That would be, that's just the default template, so I would modify that. But, other than that, yeah, that should be.
It should enter proper number and it should take in.
So I assume everything's gonna be in that loop,
Okay.
and then this minus is going to be when you're doing the different rows.
Main isn't really doing anything, so you don't.
Just this
So
one.
here you don't need to put our code in the
So you are saying that
Yeah, it will work. You'll break out of the loop if they don't put the right value. But it will work. It's fine. But enter proper number.
and then it should take into the loop. So we should put into the loop.
Well, if you're saying input a proper number, then why are you breaking out of the loop that's gonna keep checking? Yeah. And then you want to reset your row value to equal the input that was just put in. So you're just saying row equals input next line.
Because
The next value. Yeah, and then just leave it like that, but why do you have the minus sign? Just take that out. So that should work as intended.
Yeah. That's, that would certainly, not that I'm giving you a grade for it to live, but that's, that looks like a pass to me.
Intended. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, yeah, you do need a break. So, give her the update.
Yeah, so the way the packages work in Java is that basically it expects that it's in some folder inside of source with the same name.
And give her the
package.
program. Instead of saying
So-
well first, say well row.
Yeah, so if you say, you know, package Q, it expects there to be a folder inside of source called Q, and then that inside of it, that's what package means. Because we're not worrying about that
Okay,
for this
now
time.
right.
And, so another thing was, import statements. This is based out of business meaning. So like that is very
this is the concept that we
I
have
don't
to
know.
use in
Don't worry about it.
things, right? And we have to tell you that you should enter less than this number for rows and rows.
Yeah.
Does it mean like we require the value later or we change
So we
the
can like almost take
I mean, not really declaring it.
sometimes.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
and about this.
Yes. For now. We're thinking about it the same way as me.
And the documentation will be for the constant variable, so all the variables that we do, and then input and precisely the number. So should I put all the, because that's a variable here and here, should I move it on to starting of the code, or should I separate, or is it?
Yeah, I guess you could, like, it's honestly like, I'm not sure I would take marks off for it, you know? But if you want, it does look a bit nicer if you put all your variables at the top.
Oh, okay. Look, for me, it's like, because when I'm using it, I like to put when I use it.
Yeah.
Like closer to it, so even I can see it and it's easy to use.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not the sort of thing I take marks off for.
Also, input perception, we don't need to really, because I don't really know like which area should I specify output and which one I should specify.
Well, the input area is obviously when you're talking to the user.
Input,
But there's not that much processing, to be honest. So like most of the rest of it.
Okay.
As long as the labels are in there.
We don't need to,
Yeah, I'm not gonna be super hard about where you put it.
oh, and use our, I tried to work for several on draw the circle. But it didn't work for me, so then I used the overall, the same version that I do like it for me. But I just need to be like, kind of about the arms. They have a very simple,
So I'm going to say, wait till you do SVG graphics in JavaScript, because that course contains a much better explanation than what you get here. about how it works.
but we
can
don't
look ahead.
have these.
No, this is sufficient. Like, this is basically SVG graphics, this Java FX engine. In your JavaScript class, you'll have a much better go through of it than I can give you here, so I'll leave you to that. I think I do need to go to the other students.
Sure. So about these warnings, just showing these warnings.
Oh, those are all, that's none of that is good.
Okay.
The reason they grayed out that import statement seems to be because it was like conflict to that library or never used. In theory, you could really get that.
So I'm good to submit this and?
Yeah,
So-
do it.
Thank you.
Not working. Back to front. Right, is this also about the assignment? You just wanted me to check the commenting? Propose. Modify this, because that's still. But other than that, it looks good. Yeah, that's good, yeah. No, so in this week's material, there's an animation part. Yeah, basically you have to copy over all of your code into the animation and you can go from it. Only if you have some materials. That looks Yes, I'm not expecting one up yet. Okay, so it starts with this is not using correct. well, maybe it is. Okay, that is correct. That's good. Add a comment to this. Make sure you get the input, processing, output, and like you don't want to comment every line, you know. Not only does it take more time, but like you don't have to explain how Java works in functions, right? You should assume, pardon me, that anybody who's looking at your source code knows how to look at programming source code, and therefore knows what a Java is. For example, you don't like what you should be commenting on is what is your intent with this code? What are you trying to accomplish? Right? Not just a simple description of the code. Right? This is what separates you. Well, you would declare, like you should comment a variable with what the variable is. That part is correct.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
I see.
But
I don't have to say.
no, and you don't have to say, you know,
I have to say.
declaring yeah, you don't have to explain why you put it there. Just say, you know, this variable is for yeah. But you don't have to. You have to explain. There you go. Yes.
Just had a quick question regarding the bulk.
Sure.
How things do you need to check to see where the squares are, so if there is no square in that location, the bulk will be there, or are we just able to just have a general area for it?
So what I would do, because the ball shouldn't occur over top of the ring,
Yeah.
just make the region in which the ball can be not overlap with the region in which the bricks can be.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if you wanted us to, if we would have to three bricks in the last row, or would you go everywhere, or anything like that?
I'm not asking you to calculate the living physics,
Not in assignment one?
not in assignment one.
Maybe assignment two, but not assignment one.
Yeah, so it's okay. Oh, is that assignment that?
It was.
With colors.
So I've got graphics files and obviously sound files associated. I just uploaded them all to my campus.
Yes. Give them all the .txt file extension.
Okay.
Oh, like the proportion? Nope, just
That's NES man, 640 by 480. When I get wrong comments like that, should that be in Java doc or that?
it should only, so Java doc is only for in front of methods and classes.
Okay.
I might be inclined to do a multi-line doc, please, but comments are comments. If you are commenting, I can't do it.
Okay. Enough.
You've been waiting quite a while for yes. Can't find Java FX, right? Yeah. All right. I appreciate it. Okay, well, let me see here. Oh, another map, eh? Maps seem to have more problem with this. Aha. This one doesn't include the Java FX, so yeah. Now, I believe this might be the origin of the problem. Yeah. So, if I may.
Maybe that was just easier to make this.
Now, problem, I'm just going to set this up.
Sure, I can set that up. when I generate the random number.
So it'll come up with these errors, but this allows me to view the profile.
Yeah,
Yeah, see,
that
it's
is the way
not
to do it.
selected. Will it work now? Nope. So, uninstall Warframe. Yeah, like, uninstall Oracle, uninstall everything else, reinstall everything else. Make it so that the only SDK that Muslim has available is the Iberian SDK. In the worst case scenario, you may have to complete your assignment on lab. You emailed me today? I'm sorry, I was in a meeting. I had class this morning. I haven't seen my email since then. So,
In the starting, it was telling that if I want the first line, import Java util.scanner, it's showing that scanner is not valid. If I write the print element, it's not valid as well. Before I downloaded the Oracle, before that it's also it's showing that problem.
well, Iberica version 7.
My next is 255.
This is kind of, this might be a long shot, but, maybe try 21. Because currently you're trying Iberica 17, maybe try 21 and see if that works. Yeah? Oh. Well, do you know if your, what's that processor?
The expert solutions will be
You've been very
number of
good.
blocks times 3 minus 2.
So question from last to this.
Chip, Apple, and
You have lots minus 1 because there's no space on the end. So, and each space was 2 spaces. So that's a 2.
Mine was a mistake, not reading that, like, outside.
it's all good. It's all good. Okay. Apple. Without this.
What do you think it breaks them out even? I don't really want to. Mine was
More info. This is what I already saw.
And if you just wonder how long that line is and what the empty space is, and then split it between both sides.
Apple Silicon is M1 or M2. So. Apple M2. That's the chip. Okay. So ARM is correct. ARM is correct. But try the 21 version. And if that doesn't work, I hate to say it, but try what was the other one, 11? Try 21. If that doesn't work, try 11. Okay?
Is there a way to convert an integer into a string and vice versa?
Well, there's an easy way to convert an integer to a string.
So they take the user's input, that's your string, they convert it to an integer.
Yeah,
That's
I can't get parse into work.
pretty deep.
If you concatenate with an empty string, that will force string conversion.
Yeah.
The other way to do that is x dot toString, but this is less typing. To go the other way, because casting won't do the trick, I don't believe. Let me just look it up quickly. I forgot. Kind of scary how Google is listening to me. There it is. Integer.parseInt.
It is not working.
Well, so integer apparently is an object.
So
So int is a type, but integer
it's
is an object.
It's a class. It's a wrapper class for the primitive containing integer operations. I know. They can't decide what they want, you know? They wanted primitive types that weren't objects. And then they were like, but we really like methods. We want to give primitives methods. How might we do that? And that's how they decided. Integer is a class. It's in the prelude. So
Okay, so I assume that double also has a class.
it most certainly does. Yes.
And Java's better than Python. Why?
It's verbose, but again, it sticks to its own rules.
Python is amazing.
Python is not amazing. I'm sorry. It's just my opinion, but
The AI that runs the world will be coded in Python, not Java.
not if you would require 3 more planets just to generate the power and have the circuit space for it. Java's not an efficient, or Python's not an efficient language. Here's the anecdote that I usually trot out. I knew some students once who decided to take a vision processing library that was written in Python and re-implement it in C++. They changed none of the logic. All they did was do a straight re-implementation in C++.
700% faster.
Well, 5 times faster. A 500% increase in speed.
Oh, yeah, Python's slow. Absolutely.
Yep, Python is slow. And, you know, there's this joke about Python that literally the only people who use it are like absolute beginners and machine learning experts. You know, there's no middle ground. But, yeah. Sooner or later, you will come to love the type system.
It's fine.
It does save your butt from a number of situations. The correct way to program in Python is as if you were programming in Java. I also don't have enough energy to fight you on it with my usual rigor. So, how many people got this working? How many people think they could get this working in the next 5 minutes? How many people are just stuck and clueless and waiting for me to show them the solution on the board? How many people are brave enough to admit it? There we go. Well, I guess I'll do the solution on the board for you guys now. Alright, so, yeah. So, we are trying to guess a secret number. The first thing we need is a secret number. Now, in order to sum the digits, so basically we've got a design decision to make right here, right now. Either we store the secret number as a number, or we store the secret number as a string. If we store it as a string, string comparison operations get easier. If we store it as a number, numeric operations get easier. For mine, I have a personal preference for numbers over letters because I'm a math person. So I'm going to use a number. So, int secret is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aha! Totally unguessable and cryptographically secure.
So I have my luggage.
Exactly, right? Anybody who has not watched the movie Spaceballs should. So, it's a parody movie of Star Wars. We need to now set up an interaction with the user. We need to be able to take user input. So, what do we set up?
Scanner.
A scanner, that's right.
You need input.
Scanner input is equal to new scanner system.in. That's what we are scanning. You'll see that it imports the correct thing. Now, this interaction with the user is something that we repeat. Therefore, what do we use if we want repetition? A loop, while loop specifically. So, while, we'll worry about the condition. Now, so, when do we stop looping?
When we find the number.
When the user's guess matches the secret. So, when guess, so for as long as guess is not equal to secret, we stay in the loop. Now we have to declare what guess is. Quick little tip, if you initialize it to something that's definitely not your secret, then, you get this for free, basically. So, while guess is not equal to secret, we want to ask the user for their guess using our standard print operations. I don't know why, but I guess this one has decided to be a little bit insulting. Next, we receive input from the user. So our guess is input.next int. Read one integer from standard input. Making sense so far?
Professor,
Yes.
this line you just showed, is this the line that checks each digit of the five-digit number that the user input?
No, this line of code only checks the command line interface for a number typed by the user and stores that in guess. We still have to write all of the code to check the one number against the other.
Yeah, that's where I was stuck at.
Right. So, for the time being, let's just run this to see how we're doing so far. Test early, test often. Honestly, you should be running your code every 3 to 4 lines that you write. That's how frequently you should be testing your code. Okay? So, guess the number, you cad. 99999. It's not the number, so the interaction continues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We guess the correct number, and the interaction finishes. So far, so good. Make sense? Of course, now we've got like the bare functionality of the guessing game working. What we now need is the ability to generate the clues, right? We need to know, ladies, do I have 3 numbers right? That's a reference to The Price is Right, popular daytime television show. And also, what is the sum of the correct digits? So, to do this, we must write a loop. So, we wish to iterate through each of the digits in our 2 numbers one by one. It requires a small amount of math. This is how you know I'm not feeling well, that this is taking me so long. Okay. So, I'm sure you're all wondering what's going on here. I will go through this in detail. Let's trace the program. They did tracing with you guys, right?
Yep.
Did they make you do trace tables?
They
Yeah?
made us to trace flow charts.
It would be following the flow chart and I was putting it.
Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to teach you how to do a trace table. They're useful and you don't have to draw a flow chart. Basically, you just have a table where you have all of your variable values as you iterate the thing. So, we've got 5 variables going on, right? We've got guess, secret. Secret doesn't really, actually these two don't really need columns because they're constant for this part of the program. Secret and guess. So let's say secret is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and guess is 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. Right? We have I, we have guess digit, and we have secret digit. And then also we have output. Right? It's easier if I just do it, so I'm just going to do it. So, line 13, what does I get assigned?
10.
Line 14, what does guess digit get?
0.
And then secret digit gets 0 as well, right? While I is less than or equal to 100,000. We'll skip the print line there. That was just for me writing the expression. Hello. So I is 10. We have to compute 3 things, or 2 things really. Guess mod I, right? So what's guess mod 10? What is mod?
Remainder?
It's a remainder. So what's the remainder of 1, 2, 3, 3, 3 divided by 10?
3.
It is 3. To which we subtract guess mod 1. All of that divide by 1. So what is this mod 1?
0.
0, yep, because 1 divides everything perfectly because it's 1. Minus 0, divide by 1. What is anything divided by 1?
0.
Itself, that's right. So our value is 3. You will notice that that corresponds to that digit right there. Right? We perform the same operation on the secret number. So, secret mod 10 is what?
5.
I want everybody to say it once. What's secret mod 10?
5.
This number, remainder of division by 10 is?
5.
Good. 5, and here we have the same situation. Minus 0 divided by 1, which is 5. proceeding to line 20. Is guess digit equal to secret digit?
No.
So we do not activate the print statement. Moving on to the next round. Well, not yet. I times equals 10. So I becomes 100. All right? Next. Right? For the next round, all values of I have been multiplied by 10. So, what is guess mod 100? Hmm?
45.
That would be secret.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So 33.
33, yeah. So, mod 100, you get these two. So you have 33 minus, guess mod 10 is 3. Minus 3, there we go. And, actually this division operates against the entire thing. So, this thing divided by 10. So, 33 minus 3 is 30. Divide by 10?
3.
3. That just so happens to be this digit. We do the same procedure with secret. What's this thing? Mod 100?
45.
45. What's this thing? Mod 10?
5.
5.
5. Divide by 10
4.
is 4. Very good. 4 being this digit. See where this algorithm is going?
Yeah.
Are these the same?
No.
Nope.
So we do not print anything. Of course, later on we're going to replace that print statement with collect information, right? Count how many matches we had, count what the sum of the matches is. Moving right along, on our next iteration, I is 1,000. Slap an extra 0 on each one of these, right? What is guess mod 1,000?
333.
333. What is guess mod 100?
33.
Minus 33. Divide by 100. Equals
3.
3. For secret.
345.
Yep. 345 minus
45.
45.
45. Divide by 100 equals
3.
3. Is that the same?
Yes.
So,
We print the statement.
we print the statement. Good. Match. Good. Do you guys get the idea, or do you want me to do the rest of it?
No. What?
You good? Thumbs up if you're good. Thumbs down if you'd like me to keep going. Okay, you guys get the point. Good, you're bright class. Ha! So, that's what this math is doing. Right? This is the way that you have to do it if you're doing it with integers. If you're doing it with strings, then you would loop over indexes comparing characters one at a time. So, we now keep track of some data. We want to know the count, and we want to know the sum. Instead of having our print statement, we increase the count, and sum is increased by the value of the digit. Like so. Then, basically, we have to report kind of tricky, like, I'm gonna throw in a thing I really probably shouldn't do, but I'm gonna do it anyway. If guess is equal to secret, we have a different message. Congratulations. You are a winner is you. Else? You got blank. Count digits, correct? Totaling sum. Now let's run our interaction. Guess the number. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One digit correct, totaling 3. Let's see. 5, 1, 4, 3, 3, 4, 2. 2 digits correct, totaling 7. 2, 5, 3, 4, 1. Nope. 2, 1, 4, 3, 5. Yup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Congratulations, a winner is you. Does this make sense? Any questions? Anything you'd like me to go over again? Yes.
Can you tell us how to use string to solve the question match each digit?
You want to see the string version?
Yeah.
We can do the string version. String version. Main. Some of this it just gets copied over, right? About that much. Yeah. String. There we go. This also gets turned into a string. Now remember, do we use straight equality comparison on strings? Very good. What do we use instead?
Dot equals.
Dot equals. Very good. So, we are back to the point where we need to evaluate whether or not these things are the same. This time, character by character. And maybe I should reference that to the solution. There we go. that is Spring version 1, right? Maybe it isn't. Let me try, before I snap my fingers like I did something amazing, let me just actually make sure that this is wrong. Yeah, I got the Boolean wrong. There we go. Guess the number, you cad. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's the scanner breaking.
Interesting. Let's see. Ah! Gets me every time. Ba 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 da ba. So the reason it was hanging is because I forgot to increment I. So I'd done the infinite loop that everybody always does. I do that too, just so you know. I do it too. So, run that. There we go. There we go. There we go. So, a couple of points to note. Number one, we have to do some type conversion in this version. Number one, notice that we're pulling characters out of the strings using char at while looping over the indexes of the string, right? We're going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 as our indexes, pulling out those characters as we go. Checking to see if they're the same as each other. This is a bit of a pickle. When we add the sum, we are adding the value of the character that we are currently examining, but parseInt expects a string, not a character. So, in Java, a handy little thing you can do, if you create an empty string and then concatenate something to it, it forces the toString method, which converts anything to a string, in characters. So that creates the string from the character. You then parse it as an integer, add that to the sum, report the sum at the end of the loop. Does that make sense?
Could you repeat me?
That whole thing? Like how much do you want me to repeat?
Just that one.
Okay.
How do you-
So, guess.char at, that's what we want to add to sum, right? This forces conversion to a string, right? Concatenating with an empty string will force this thing to be converted to a string. That's necessary because the parseInt method expects a string and not a character, and Java is picky about these sorts of things. The integer.parseInt converts a numeric string into an integer, if possible, and then adds that, using plus equals, to the sum, for all correctly matched values. Does that make sense?
What is integer? Is it an object or is it a variable?
This is a class, actually. This is a wrapper class. So primitives don't have methods because they're primitives. They're not objects. But Java recognizes that it's useful to have certain operations as applied to primitives. Number one, it's useful to be able to convert them to strings. Number two, it's useful to be able to convert strings to them. So, Java provides classes, integer, char, double, for all the primitives, that include the methods necessary for these types of operations, type conversions, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Question?
So basically the parseInt to use for changing from string to integer.
That's what you use to, so integer.parseInt changes from string to integer. Yeah. Changing anything to a string is easier. All you have to do is empty string plus, and that's shorthand. Technically speaking, the correct way to do it is to use the .toString method. but, you know,
And are we
this one's
converting-
shorter. Yes?
And are we converting like character to a string or? Because guess
yes.
is already a string, right? But it's a dot char at, so it's like a character, right?
Well, yeah, so char at returns a character, not a string.
Okay. We're converting-
Parse int expects a string, not a character. So we must convert to a string for this to work. Let me show you what happens when we remove that. Error. Required type string provided char. Type incompatibility error. This is Java. This is working in a real type system, folks. So, any further questions?
Can you add a random number?
Sure. So math.random returns a random number, well, you know what, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. Random number between, so it returns a random floating point number between 1 and 0, right? So if you want something with 5 digits, you have to multiply by that much, right? Then, of course, you have to convert to a string for it to be type compatible, but you also have to chop off the tail. Now, chopping off the tail, you could do something like we did here, subtract the modulo of 1, or you can force truncation quite easily, typecast as int. One, two, three, four, 5. 0 digits correct. Uh-oh. 1 digit, so the 3 is correct. Oh, it's actually pretty easy to fudge this.
6, 7, 8, 9.
So, we got 2 9s, a 4, a 3, and a 1. So, 9, 9, 1, 4, 3. Nope. 1, 4, 3, 9, 9. Okay, there's a 9 correct. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm not going to guess. We know that it's a random number and it's not the one that we Anyway, does that make sense? Good. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you show the code?
Yep, I can show the integer code.
Are you gonna like publish this on the campus?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm going to put this up on campus. It would be cruel not to. So, in the interests of everybody's bladders, I think we're going to take a 10-minute break, since we missed our break at the halfway point in the class. So, 10-minute break hereby decreed. Please be back in the classroom by 3:11. Thank you. Still having issues?
Yeah, so should I start?
So, 21 didn't work?
It's the same problem. It's showing in the line of proteins.
So, do you mind if I take a look?
I deleted the code again.
Oh, did you already uninstall?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, go for 11 then. I will, I think, forward your email to the course writer for this course, because I don't know what's going on. Maybe she does. Okay. I'll give you an extension. If you can't get it, yeah, because, you know, deadline's coming up, so, yeah, I'll give you an extension. You already sent me an email, right? Yeah, don't worry. We're friends. Yeah, this will work out. This will be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I can download it 21 again if you want to look.
Should I? At this point, I kind of think I should just like give you to Karen and see what she says.
Okay. Thanks for the help. They starting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you ready for one? I actually just have a problem with that. We were running 21. Try reading the classes FX, whatever it's called. That's yeah, but that's for my problems. I did when I first got there. But when I renamed this, it's
Oh.
I downloaded this.
Yeah, it was the file package importer. So that folder is a package, but it's not a working directory. So it's looking to discover your image file in the working directory, not the package.
You go over this the first time.
That chunk is actually something we will be discussing in full detail around. So, I will hopefully hold your questions about what all that does, and I can go through it real quickly. Oh. Just like, don't, so the method should have a Java doc. Start method. You should have a Java document on it, describing what it does. Yes, except it will also require, descriptions of basically
These files in there, which you can source it. Also put packages or other packages for all of it. It's just a folder.
yeah, what is it?
Watch the guys. And then you can do that.
Rename the documents.
You did this all last week.
Yes. Yeah, just when you're submitting your files, submit those too, but give them a document files. Same way as the job files.
once you blank canvas, go back into this.
Something, you were saying that you were having trouble with 21.
Yeah, 21 wasn't working, 17 did.
Interesting. So try 17 and then run it again. Well,
It's not, it's still running.
Yeah, that's fine.
you would probably go for a zip file.
So that's a big, big red. And then over there for
Well, just worry about it.
happy face, so you can see stroke over. That's the drop down. That's.
Don't worry about it.
That's the drop down. If you run that.
Yeah, I ran into another scanner issue.
I am.
It kept inputting the first guess for me, and it was blank.
When you were running before.
And because it was blank and comparing it against the length of the guess, it was spitting out an error.
There's also.
Is this still an issue?
I figured out why, because I was pulling the next integers, but it doesn't go down to the next line until I say go to next line, and then it takes that enter space, which is the dash n, as the next input, instead of asking you for the next input.
Yep. That'll do it.
I very much dislike scanner.
Yeah, well, if I may say so, it's like, the problem is not the scanner, the problem is like standard input in like STD out, STD in, they just kind of work strangely.
STD, what?
Yes, it stands for standard, thank you. It's like,
You got 12 more weeks of it.
your complaint isn't with Java, it's with the operating system, basically. Java just exposes the operating system to you slightly more straightforwardly than you're used to, that's all.
Well, couldn't scanner expect that I'm going to ask for the next line, or at least ignore the enter space?
You're asking Java to do work for you? Don't you understand? You work for Java, not the other way around.
This is why people like Python. Python works with you, not against you.
No, Python treats you like a child.
Yeah.
This is real programming. You deserve to have raw access to the operating system.
Python works in spite of you.
Yeah. Question? Well, okay. But it's got to be a quick one because we got to start again. Don't worry about it. You can do that. Yeah. We're currently trying to transition away from packages because it makes things like 80% of people weren't using them properly anyways, and it just kind of doesn't make sense in this context because we don't use multiple packages, so, you know, not all of the course materials have been updated to reflect that just yet. That's the problem. Okay.
About extends, what exactly extends the application there in the template?
Can I return this to you after class? Because I gotta start.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. Moving right along. All right, simmer down. We're gonna do more learning. Everybody loves learning. Simmer down means stop talking. Shh. Thank you. So, the for loop. So, for loops in Python have a very specific meaning. In any other programming language, we would call them a for each loop. A regular for loop has a specific meaning in non-Python programming languages. It's essentially a contracted form of a while loop. You may have noticed that the common structure for a while loop, you have a declaration of some loop variable, an update to that loop variable, and a condition. The for loop takes that common structure and puts the whole thing on one line. Initialization, update, condition. Aside from that, the semantics, that is to say how a for loop operates, precisely and exactly the same as a while loop. The for loop simply requires less space, takes things and puts them inside of those brackets. The particular items are separated by semicolons. Any questions? So, this is a more convenient form of the while loop, which is less prone to error. Can anybody think of any reason that you might need a while loop now that this has been revealed to you? When might we still use a while loop? Assuming anything with this structure can be converted and should be converted to a for loop. Yes, sir, at the back.
Access the variable outside of the loop.
If you want to access the variable outside of the loop, that's true. Under scoping rules, this loop variable will be scoped to the for loop. That's true. That's one. Yes?
When the exit condition is dynamic?
When the exit condition is dynamic, yes. For example, when we are running an interaction and we're waiting for the user to say something, that's not a numeric condition, right? So, basically, the while loop is still more dynamic. It covers more cases, right? The while loop, although it looks very basic, is actually it's the fundamental loop from which all other types of loops have been built, right? The while loop, the humble while loop, handles all situations. All other types of loops are built for specific situations. This style for loop is built for a specific situation where you have some series of numbers that you're looping over. That's a common situation. That's why this has been built into the language. Does that make sense? So far, so good? Good. I have to admit, I thought I would have lost my voice by now. I'm holding up reasonably well, actually. So, some of you may not know what plus plus means. Anybody not know what plus plus means? Thumbs up if you know plus plus. Thumbs down if you don't. You guys know that minus minus is decrementing instead of incrementing? Okay, good. We won't dwell on it then. It seems you guys were educated properly in Python. Even though Python doesn't have those operators. So, there you go. I guess everybody, it's intuitive, you know? Alright, anyway, moving on. Oh, yes, question.
If we write like x plus plus, it will be post incremented.
Yes.
And if we write plus plus x, it will be.
Yes, that's true. Would you like to see an example?
Yeah, sure.
So, let's do quick example, just a quick one. So, as your esteemed colleague pointed out, plus plus can be used as a prefix or a postfix operator. So, if we have int x is equal to 5, and we print x, then we print, system, line x plus plus, and then I think I want plus plus x here. So, need to run this one. Pardon me. Notice our output. We print x, it is 5, that is fine. Plus plus as a prefix operator performs the addition before the rest of this statement gets executed. So, when we print next, we print 6, because when we execute line 5, x is incremented before line 5 gets executed. For line 6, plus plus is being used as a postfix operator. That addition is being performed after the line on which it occurs. Therefore, when we print x on line 6, we get 6, not 7. On line 7, x is 7, but on line 6, x is 6, because the plus plus is performed after line 6 is executed. That is the difference between prefix and postfix incrementation. Decrement works the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Most of the time, this doesn't matter at all, as you will put it on one line all by itself. This only matters if you're trying to be fancy. So if you're trying to be fancy, ask yourself the question, why? You should focus on getting your assignments working and then worry about fanciness. I'm not marking for fancy, okay? All right. So, we have 2 more constructs that we wish to cover. I'm going to do the last one first, and then I'll come back to the other one. So, let us consider the do-while loop. Do-while, 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 ha ha ha. So, the do-while loop is very, very similar to the while loop. It only differs in one respect. It will always execute its contents at least once. To put it another way, it checks its condition at the end of the loop, not the beginning. So, if I have, might as well do this in code. Let's imagine I have int x is equal to 0 and a standard while loop, while x is less than 5, print x, x plus plus. Right? What's our expected output?
0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Compare the do while loop. No difference. That's because both of these are running more than once, or more than 0 times. If, however, our starting condition was that x is 10, right? If our starting condition is that x is 10, how many iterations will the while loop have?
0.
That's right, because its condition is initially false, right? In order to enter a while loop, the condition must be true at least once at the beginning when it's tested. Compare this to the do while loop. Nope, that's the wrong button. Cancel. Run. Thank you. Oh, there, sorry. I was resetting it, I didn't reset it in both places. All right, so. We execute the print statement, printing x as 10. Then we increment it, then we check the condition. The condition comes out false, we stop the loop. So, while loops execute 0 or more times, do while loops execute 1 or more times. Does that make sense? You can certainly rewrite a while loop to simulate the behavior of a do while loop, and vice versa. It's actually very easy. To get a do while loop from a while loop without using a do while loop, all you have to do is take the loop condition, throw it in an if statement at the back of the loop, and break on true, put true in for the condition to the loop. Instant do while loop, right? That's, let me show you. If this was true, and I said if x is less than 5, break, ta-da! We just made a do while loop out of the loop, out of a regular while loop. Does this make sense? I'd like to point out one syntactic detail that I've used. This is the second time I've used it, and I didn't explain it the first time, so I apologize for that. You notice what I'm doing with the if statement right here? In Java, if the code block would only contains one statement, you don't have to put it in braces. You can leave the braces out. You can put it on the same line. You can also put it on the next line if you really want to, like that, right? If you look through like the notes and textbook examples and that sort of thing, you'll often see this form used because it's just a little more compact and fits more nicely on a slide. But, So yeah, so that's what that means. Any questions? Any questions about do while loops? Okay, you have learned about them now. Your duty now is to forget them forever until I bring them up again in PHP, if you have me for PHP, in which case I will mention them like once in the class and you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember do while loops. Or you'll be like, what's a do while loop? One of those two things will happen. The joke is that do while loops don't come up very much. You can think of a couple of applications for them. For example, when you're running user interaction, if you want to re-prompt the user for valid inputs, kind of similar to something you have to do for assignment 1. Using a do while loop means you don't have to repeat the question outside the loop and inside the loop. You just put it once and execute the loop at least once. It's a little bit more convenient, but 6 to one, half dozen to the other. Good. Now, let's talk about the switch statements. So, switch cases are not something that exist in Python. They made some motions about including a switch case recently, but it's not a switch case, you know. They had to Python it up as usual. This is a proper switch case, as they exist in pretty much every language you care to, every C-based language except Python. So, the purpose of the switch case: if you have a variable and you want to do different things based on different values of that variable, and you're using equality comparison to get there, you can rewrite everything as a switch case, and it's a bit more efficient. Both in terms of your time and I believe the computer's time. I think that switches are a little tiny fraction. Like there's like a very small amount of operations that don't get performed in a switch case versus if statements. So I think they're like very marginally more efficient. But like that efficiency is going to be like very. It's not really going to matter in comparison to the whole thing. Reduce nestedness of loops if you want better efficiency. That's the big thing. So if you find yourself writing an if statement like this, if choice equals 1, do something. If it equals 2, else if it equals 2, do something else. Else if 3, do something else. Else do something for the default case. That gets exactly translated to the switch statement. We switch on a specified variable, case 1, case 2, case 3, default. Put your code in here. Don't forget the break statements. If you don't include the break statements, execution flows through a switch statement, a switch case, until it hits a break statement. The correct way to think of a switch statement is as a kind of contained goto, bringing things back to gotos. You remember how I was talking about labels? Goto labels? That's what you got. These are goto labels. Right? You go to whichever line of code matches the value of the input of the variable that you've specified. Break breaks you out of the code block and continues on with the rest of execution. So, I'm going to do another class. Grades. A sarcastic program. So, let's run a quick user interaction. Enter your letter grade. Switch. On, you need to actually take that, right? String response, input dot.
Can you just get away with the char here?
Yeah, you could get away with a char. Input dot next char. next byte maybe? No, it's not gonna like that. Input dot next. I don't think char at 0. I don't think it reads individual characters. I didn't find a method for that anyway.
No. It's probably easier with the string.
Like it would be in there, you know?
Yeah.
Like the closest I can get is maybe like byte is doing that, but you know, that's returning a special byte data type, which we then have to cast as a character, which I suppose we could do that too. It would be input dot next byte dot, and then you'd cast that as char. Something like that. But anyway, this will do. Response. Case. Single or double quotes? Correct. Single quotes. Case. B. Case. C. Case.
It's going to be case sensitive too, yeah?
It is definitely going to be case sensitive, yeah. Case F. And then we make it actually do something, say something sarcastic. What a keener. If you get a B, it's like, how average. Got a C, it's like, but something that's not too mean. I need to start, not saying things that are too mean.
Reconsider your life choices.
No, that's definitely D. System dot out. Oh.
Perhaps tourism is more your thing.
Perhaps if you had applied yourself more, a B could have been within reach. That's not really sarcastic, but that's okay. A D is like, yes, congratulations. You didn't fail. And then F is, well, they're always hiring in the army. Which is actually true.
Yeah, it sure is.
Boop. Oh, wow, okay. Stop! 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 Stop. I told you to stop. Thank you. There we go. So, if we enter A, first of all, what did I leave out?
Breaks.
Your default.
Yeah. Yeah, I left out default. That's true. I should put a default in.
You're going to put it in sometimes, not have
That's not even a proper grade. There we go. Yeah. So anyway, I enter A, and you see that it goes through every single one of these, right?
Got no break statement.
It's got no breaks. So if we add
Put
a
on
break, for example, at B, A will print A and B, B will print just B, and C will print the rest. Overwhelmingly, the most common thing is to have a break in each case. You don't require one for default because it'll just exit anyway. But yeah, that's what the breaks do. Yes?
default at the top, will it still do exit?
I don't think it matters where you put default, actually. Let's try it. Yeah, if you put it at the top, you will need break, though. Q. Yep. Default can go anywhere, right? Because it's, you also don't have to put the cases in any particular order. It will find the one that's appropriate and jump to it. But ordering does have an impact on, if execution is falling through cases, obviously it's going to do those in the order they appear, right? So, if I didn't have that break statement, then anybody who entered a nonsense grade gets sarcastic comment number 1. Yes?
So if you're putting default at the top, how does it know what all the other answers are before knowing it's not right?
That's a good question, actually. Let's see. Is it testing them one at a time? That's a good question. Oh. Yeah, it is. It's just doing it. It traces, it's in the back end, it's probably collected up all of the valid case labels. It's not like I go with the first one that matches and default matches all. That's not what's going on. It's actually testing each, testing each of them. So, yes.
What if you have 2 cases that are the same?
Gives you a syntax error. Duplicate case labels are not permitted. This isn't Python anymore. You're not in Kansas anymore. All right. Does this make sense? So this is the switch statement. This is the switch statement that I was alluding to previously. This is the use of break statements in the switch statement. If you understand what's going on with the switch statement, you will understand that the break statement itself has not been altered in any way, right? It still has the same underlying semantics as it does in the loop. It breaks you out of the code block, right? Does that make sense? Good. Any further questions? Okay. Question at the back.
If you do continue, does it bring you to the top of the code block?
I don't believe so. It seems like a good way to get in an infinite loop, unless you're continue. Yeah, I don't like it. Continue outside of loop. Yeah. So yeah, continues are not allowed in switch statements. Any other questions? All right. I think that's everything. I think I got through all of the week 2 lecture material, surprisingly. There's extra material on comparing strings. We kind of already talked about it, but I've gone over this already. Also, this isn't accurate. This isn't accurate, Sam. There's no spot been left for the null terminating character, Sam. Sam's not here anymore. Sam left. He's teaching at McMaster now.
They traded you for him?
They did, yeah. Actually, it's kind of a funny story that I'll tell you off camera. Yeah, it seems like he's settling in there, but
Watch out for that hole.
The which?
Just watch out for that hole.
Yeah, just never forget null termination. never forget null termination. As soon as you forget null termination, it's going to bite you. That's how it works. Yeah, anyway. So, it's kind of incredible to say, but we are actually now like caught up with respect to the lecture because I basically didn't do as many exercises in this lesson as normally I would. So starting on, Wednesday 8 a.m., we will be doing the week 3 material, which means that we will be starting on classes. Dun, 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 dun. Cue thunder, cue lightning. I'll publish it so that you guys can take a look if you want in advance. Also, assignment 2. Good. Yeah. All right. I have nothing more to say. Can I have a motion to dismiss class? Motion. Can I have a seconder? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The motion is carried. See you on Wednesday. Sorry?
Can you open suitcase? Linda, can you explain that the char at 0?
Oh, yeah, okay. So, sorry, give me one moment. So, next gets a string, right? Char at 0 gets the first character in the string. So, the actual effect of this is, if I were to write something like apple, it takes it as an A. Yeah, that's the effect. I see I have a Q. This is progress. Put her down for a moment.
Good, I'm done after this. He told me, I asked him that, he told me to hand in everything, Java and all, I got a couple of graphics files and a sound file. He said, it's just an explosion sound. I was looking for someone to say welcome or hello or something. I just wanted it to make sound. He said append text, the TXT extension, all, that's all, whatever program, .java.txt, and then like my logo, .png.txt. That's what I, so he didn't say make it a
You may have had
zip file, he
an
didn't say
easy problem
make a folder.
Now you can make me a sandwich.
God had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Can you tell me one way to check the valid number with one loop? Because I found there's too many inputs and each one I need to check it with
Are you still recording?
Oh yeah, I am actually. Here. Yeah, just there's a button on the back.